Hi, everyone. I wanted to take you into a presentation today in regards to York County's business past. And you've done some presentations. These presentations look fantastic, and we're going to take a look at those tomorrow on Tuesday. But for today, what I wanted to take you into is some of the other big business leaders that also took York County to a new level. Now, I assigned you some of the biggest ones, some of the most well known ones, some of the ones that have the greatest resources, but there are so many more. York County was so diverse when it comes to business. We had so many different options, so many different employers, so many people that gave back to York. So, our objective here is going to be to evaluate the contributions of the York County business leaders that made York an industrial powerhouse and those that continue driving York's economy today. So, let's get into it here. York was absolutely booming in so many ways in the late 1800s and early 1900s. We had so many opportunities, so many jobs. We produced so much, and many of our businesses were nationally renowned. We're just known from coast to coast. Now, again, we're going to take a look at some more of these people. What this presentation is going to be about is going to be about some of the business leaders that you have not been assigned. And so let's get into it here. First one's here, giants in trade and transportation. I will start off with two of the biggest names in York County history, and probably two people that you've probably never heard of before. This is Philip Albright Small and Samuel Small. These guys, you see Philip Albright on the left, Samuel Small on the right. These guys were bankers, millers, iron makers, hardware store owners. They were basically just like craftsmen of all different sorts. And their accomplishments did not just stop here. And you can actually see their hardware store that was located right in Center Square, right there at Market Street and George Street. And you have the market sheds right there at the square in York back in the 1870s. And these guys had prime real estate, but they also had all sorts of different businesses. One of the biggest things these guys did for us is they gave back like crazy. Philip Albright Small, Samuel Small, they created York Hospital, they created York College, they created the Children's Home of York for people that lost a parent within the Civil War, lost their fathers in the Civil War, and they also donated land that has since become York High's athletic field called Smalls Athletic Field. So it bears their name. But these guys are some of the biggest donators in York County history. They really put their money where their mouth was and they gave back to York. Not to say they were perfect, but they certainly tried to make York a better place. But their money is what helped create York College and York Hospital. Two huge, huge business leaders. Now, moving on here, another transportation guy here. Milton Martin was a car company guy, and his cars were fantastic back in the early 1900s. The only problem is there was a lot of competition with cars, especially the one that really became huge around 1914 and 1915 is Ford Motor Cars. So in the 1910s, Milton Martin's car company started to go down a little bit. Eventually, he passed away in the 1920s, and his wife actually did something that has enshrined Milton Martin's name in York County lore ever since. She took some of their family's money after the sale of the car company and created Martin Library. And Martin Library is the best library, I say, within the entire county. It's located on Market Street in York and is a fantastic library that's a great community center. But it's named after Milton Martin, that car company guy. Now, there was one more car company in York by the name of the Pullman Carriage Company or the Pullman Car Company. It was owned by Samuel Bailey, and the Pullman name was a well known name in transportation. And so he kind of actually stole that name from a railroad car company that operated out of Chicago. But anyway, Samuel Bailey opened up this Pullman car company and they launched an array of cars and they were very successful. But just like Martin Perry Company, they also failed because Ford became so ultra popular around 1914, 1915. Now, to factories and industry. Going to move on to Jacob Laux, and also this goes into Thomas Shipley's story. But Jacob Laux was the creator of York Manufacturing Company, and they worked with refrigeration. Eventually, they worked with air conditioning, and they still do today under the name of Johnson Controls. But Jacob Laux, sitting in the middle right here, was a huge factory man from back in the day. And actually, the factory you see on the bottom left, back when it was opened up back in the late 1800s, it was the largest factory in the entire world. How unbelievable is that? The York County had a factory that was the biggest in the entire world back in that time. But York County had factories lined throughout the entire, at least throughout York City. And it was just humongous. We had such a great base of employment here in York and business here in York. But this happens to be one of the big ones, York Manufacturing Company with Jacob Locks at the helm. One of his sons started up another big company by the name of York Safe and Lock. That gentleman's name is S4E Locks. They built some of the most well-built safes in not just York County and not just Pennsylvania, but in the entire world. These safes are still collector's items. And the only reason why that company's not around today is because they really suffered during the Great Depression. And just at the end of the Great Depression, S4 Locks actually passed away in 1942. And after that, the company kind of went up. So, great company. You can actually see the influence a little bit of S4 Locks today. In one, he kind of saved us a little bit during World War II. He's the one that organized all the efforts to get all the armament production here in York. And so he built anti-aircraft guns and he got York County to build tanks and airplane parts and all that good stuff. But it was his doing, his idea to try to secure contracts for military production during World War II. Now, how you can see him today, his influence today is hopefully someday you'll get to actually go to his property. One of the best places to go in York County for weddings is his property called Lomont Farms or Locksmount Farms. And they actually have multiple different venues there where people get married. It's an expensive place to get married, but I've been lucky enough to go to 3 different weddings there, and it's just a blockbuster place to go to. So it's located right near Eastern York High School, but beautiful, beautiful places, beautiful property that S4 Locks had. So maybe you'll get to visit his property someday in your life. Next one I want to go to is a Red Line man, but it also weaves in the story of Dallastown and Red Line. Dallastown and Red Line actually produced, and York County as a whole produced, over a quarter of the entire nation's cigar supply back in the 1920s. Dallastown was born off of cigars, Red Line as well. And D. Frank Kaltrider is one of the biggest, most successful cigar manufacturers within York County. So we were huge with it, and he was the shining star of all the cigar production. Now, the Kaltrider family, long after Frank Kaltrider had passed away, the way we can see his influence is they actually created Kaltrider Library back in 1968. And so if you've ever gone to the Red Line Library, that's what bears his name. His family is actually the ones that gave the money to create that library. Now, last couple here. We actually had a huge whiskey distiller here in York County, specifically within Glen Rock, by the name of William Faust. And a little bit of history really hurt his company. In 1920, Prohibition went into effect, which caused alcohol sales to be illegal. So he could no longer produce, he could no longer sell his alcohol, and so William Faust had to go out of business. By the time we got rid of Prohibition in 1933 and made alcohol legal again, William Faust Company really didn't have the juice to get back up and running again, so that was it for them. So they really passed away in 1920 when Prohibition was launched. Your last one here, and I have here Giants in Sales, is a huge salesman. And a piece of his creation you may have actually seen today as the shoe house that you see off Route 30. That was really just an advertising ploy for this guy and a way for him to come up with some zany ideas to how to advertise. His name is Malin Haynes, and he had Malin Haynes' shoe company, he called himself the Shoe Wizard. He had 50 different shoe sales companies within the state of Pennsylvania and also the state of Maryland. But he was a shoe guy, and actually one other thing too is you can actually see his property and a reflection of his influence today as the area towards East York that's called Haynes Acres was really all his property. So throughout the entire area where you see like the alleys in East York and across from like the Salvation Army, that is the Haynes Acres area. That was all Malin Haynes' property, but he was a huge, huge businessman. Malin Haynes was. He was a shoe company owner back in the mid 1900s. York County has made refrigerators, farming equipment, whiskey, cigars, safes, pottery, paper, weights, and so much more. We did all of this, and it helped us greatly to increase our population, to give our people jobs, for those business people to give back to society. And what's crazy is, at this point, We're only 150 years old. We were growing like crazy, and we would continue to grow, and we still have a fantastic factory base today. We still producing things that are world renowned today, high quality today, and we're going to take a look at that throughout this week. Tomorrow, we're going to take a look at your presentations, but thank you for the work you put into it, and I'll see you around the bend.